Over the last 4 seasons, A.J. Brown has been not only one of the most productive receivers in the NFL, comparing him to other number one receivers in the NFL, A.J. Brown is really one of the most consistent ones. He's one of the best ones that we've had in the NFL in his 4 seasons as a Philadelphia Eagle, a multiple time All Pro player, obviously the Super Bowl just a few years ago, and multiple times in the Pro Bowl as well. He's a guy who, like I said, just is the prototypical number one receiver for an offense. Uber reliable. Even in this last season where things really turned sour with him and the Eagles, um, it it seemed like it was kind of the Eagles' hand that was forced in making a deal because it just seemed like AJ Brown was not interested in being a Philadelphia Eagle in the future and in the present either. And we kind of have all known the trade that happened just a couple of weeks ago, sending him to New England for a first round pick in 2028. We all really knew it was bound to happen. And I think it's one of the most disappointing outcomes we've seen to a player who was really successful in his time with Philadelphia. He was, like I said, a multiple time All Pro player, second team. And for Philadelphia, you're a win now franchise. You have a top 10 quarterback with an elite running game to boot, and a young defense that's loaded with playmakers at every position. This makes that decision to trade A.J. Brown, again, while it was forced pretty much by A.J. Brown on his side, it just makes the move very disappointing if you're thinking about it in the grand scheme of things. The outcome that came from his time in Philly is really disappointing. You have a hard time finding a receiver in NFL history to have a 4 year stretch with one team as successful as AJ Brown's and still find that player wanting out of their situation, wanting out of being the number one receiver for their team. And while Philadelphia did make a move in the NFL draft to get Mekhi Lemon as the supplement to the departure of A.J. Brown, and you still have Devontae Smith, you obviously have Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert in the fold for this offense. I think there's one player out there that would obviously put this offense back in the realm of the elite and not just the NFC, but the NFL as a whole. And I think he would be the move that would put this team back in the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, you could look around every single roster and probably find a really good receiver that if you're Philadelphia, you're willing to trade, second round picks for, maybe multiple second round picks for, and have them paired with Devontae Smith and help them help the Eagles and help Devontae Smith bring on Mekhi Lemon for the future and get him up to speed with the offense and, get this whole offense in a position to be successful and back in the Super Bowl. But I really think that there's one guy I could see really wanting out of his situation and it probably being something that could be beneficial for both his current team and the Eagles. It's Justin Jefferson with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Jefferson, if you look at him compared to A.J. Brown in terms of the last 4 seasons, you see a guy in Justin Jefferson who has played one less game but has gotten 44 more receptions, almost 400 more receiving yards, 7 less touchdowns. But I think when you compare Justin Jefferson to A.J. Brown, there's obviously a bit of a gap, I think, between how people view Jefferson and view Brown. Justin Jefferson is probably a top 3 wide receiver at the worst in this league behind Jamar Chase and Jackson Smith and Jigba. And again, you look at it from the Philadelphia Eagles perspective of being in a win now mode with a top 10 quarterback in Jalen Hurts. You have to make a move that is going to keep you in line with the Seattle Seahawks who just won a Super Bowl, with the LA Rams who just traded for Myles Garrett and might also be getting Aaron Donald to come out of retirement. You look around at teams like the Buccaneers, teams like even the 49ers, teams like, you always kind of have to wonder about the Cowboys. A move like adding Justin Jefferson would keep Philly at the top of their own division, and it would keep them back towards the top of the NFC. It would be able to compete with offenses like Seattle, who have that number one elite offensive player of the year option in Jackson Smith and Jigba. To be able to help combat the fact that if you face the Rams in the playoffs, not only are you going to have two elite pass rushers, you're going to have two elite receivers on the other side to worry about as well, with Nakua and Adams for the Rams. There's a lot of teams in the NFC, I think, that are kind of going to be in one of their final iterations of their roster. I think there's a good chance Tampa Bay looks really different in 2027. There's a really good chance the LA Rams look really different in 2027. There's a good chance a lot of these teams look really different. And what the Eagles have a chance to do is still keep their team at the top of the conference with a move like trading for Justin Jefferson. He obviously would slot in as the number one, but I think when you look at it, Jefferson's not going to be looking to just be the 120 plus reception guy, get 1,800 yards and 15 touchdowns and make it all about him. I think he got a taste of winning with Minnesota, and since that's been taken away from him, he's not really happy. At least you wouldn't expect him to be. And if we're looking at the Minnesota Vikings, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to think that this quarterback situation isn't going to work. I don't think anybody really believes that Kyler Murray is the franchise for Minnesota. I don't think anybody really believes that J.J. McCarthy is the franchise for Minnesota. And in 2027, is Justin Jefferson really going to want to wait for somebody like an Arch Manning or a Julian Sayin or whoever else could be drafted in the top 5 of next year's draft? I don't think he's really going to want to wait around for a real rebuilding project. In Minnesota, if you're looking at it, you shouldn't want a $30 to $40 million a year receiver on your team while you're trying to rebuild. If you want to capitalize the most on this situation and this asset that is Justin Jefferson, you trade him to Philly. You get multiple draft picks going forward. You probably get multiple first rounders, some second rounders, some day 3 picks as well, if you play this out right. Because, again, this is probably the move that could give Philly another Super Bowl. If Justin Jefferson is healthy, which wasn't necessarily the case last season, if he's 100% healthy and fully involved in an offense and fully motivated for, with Super Bowl aspirations, you get a guy that can be a 1,500-yard plus receiver without even trying. And for that's why you would trade all of those picks that I referenced just a short time ago to get a player of that status. Obviously, this is just a mock trade, and I don't necessarily think that this is going to happen, but I do think if you're an Eagles fan and you're thinking about that one move that Howie Roseman and this front office could make to really push this roster over the top and make you a Super Bowl contender again in 2026, adding a Justin Jefferson would be a perfect move. He's not only under contract for multiple years going forward, he's a guy that I think is really motivated by actually winning in the league. And like I said, he got a taste of winning a few years ago when Kirk Cousins was his quarterback, and then Minnesota decided to let that stop. They brought in J.J. McCarthy, and this year they brought in Kyler Murray, and I really don't think that Justin Jefferson's going to get the wins that he wants. And he's definitely not going to get the playoff wins he wants, I think, either. And so I think it's one of two things. It's a move that helps Philadelphia now, and it's a move that also helps Minnesota and Jefferson now. Jefferson wants to win. I think Minnesota wants to gear up for the future, whatever that looks like. And in my opinion, it shouldn't include Justin Jefferson if you're going to be losing 10 to 13 games a year. That's going to be it for this video. If you want to see more mock trade type videos like this, make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.